This is the I'm Giving Notice podcast, episode number 2.
This is the I'm Giving Notice podcast, where you get to take control of life's big 3 and have the career, relationships, and health that you've always dreamed of. Now, get ready to say, I'm Giving Notice, with your host, Mace Haroff.
Hello, this is Mace Haroff, and welcome to the I'm Giving Notice podcast, where we help you to take control of life's big 3, your career, your relationships, and your health. And I am so excited. Today, I am interviewing my first guest on the I'm Giving Notice podcast, and that is none other than David Pollay. David Pollay is a leader in the field of positive psychology, and he is on a mission to help people live fulfilling lives every day at home and at work. He is the author and creator of the international blockbuster, The Law of the Garbage Truck, which is now translated into 12 languages. People from more than 100 countries have taken his No Garbage Trucks pledge not to accept, create, and dump emotional garbage. His latest book, The 3 Promises, will be released by Sterling Publishing on October 21st. People worldwide are becoming happier and more fulfilled when they include David's The 3 Promises in their lives. David is a leader in the field of positive psychology, serving as the co-founding associate executive director of the International Positive Psychology Association. David, welcome to I'm Giving Notice.
Mace, it's wonderful to be with you. Congratulations on the podcast. I am honored. I hope I deserve that honor, but I'm honored to be your first guest.
Well, David, the honor is mine, and there's no one who could be a better first guest than you. So let's get right into it. Before we get into the law of the garbage truck, which is what we're going to focus on through most of the interview, I'd like to know how you escaped the corporate world.
It's a question I think we've all considered at some point in time. For me, it was there was a one thread in my life, no matter what I did, whether it be in sports or whether it be in business, school, whatever, I always had a passion for wanting people in my life just to be happy and successful, both happy and successful, and that there be peace and that everyone be kind and that people get along. I've always felt that people just, if we would all get along, so many more positive things could happen in our life and in the world. So for me, business was an opportunity for me to build expertise and knowledge in the area of people development. So whether it was customer service relations that I was ahead of in a couple companies, to when I was at Yahoo, I ended up being in the learning and development role. It was always focusing more and more on the direct route to what I love, which is, again, helping people develop to be their best selves, which leads ultimately to being happy. And so that's where going and becoming an author and a speaker and a consultant gave me the opportunity to do that. And so at the right time, I left my last company and was able to start my own firm. And thankfully, except looking back to keep in contact with friends, I'm thrilled to be doing what I'm doing.
Very, very cool. So let's jump to the law of the garbage truck. First of all, in a nutshell, what is the law of the garbage truck?
No, the law of the garbage truck, Mace, is about how to navigate negativity in the world. So the law of the garbage truck, and what I do in the book, is teach people how not to get dumped on by others. People complain all the time about people saying this and doing this and getting so frustrated by it. So the first is how not to get dumped on by others. The second is how we do not dump on ourselves, because we often blame other people and are resentful of other people's actions, but we do it to ourselves in very unique ways. The way
Give me an example of when we dump on ourselves.
Well, it's such a great question, because what happens is when we look at our past, there's so many things in our lives that trigger our view of our past. So you wake up in the morning and something, it can even be biological or physical or something in our surrounding that triggers a memory of the past. And then all of a sudden, if we haven't worked through that memory or worked through that particular memory or situation and brought it to resolution, we'll end up focusing on that and getting resentful, regretful, and upset about the past. That's one way. Another way is somebody says something or does something, we read something, we hear something, then all of a sudden we get worried, not worried in a good way, but worried in a toxic way about our future. And so we start having self-talk and conversations with ourselves that are so negative they put us in a down mood, in a less aggressive place for taking care of the things that are important to us. So that's where we're dumping on ourselves.
So it just takes a little bit of someone else's negativity to trigger our own negativity.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And it can be just the simplest little thing that the other person had absolutely no idea they were doing, absolutely no intention of doing, and we somehow let that trigger, or the trigger popped up in our minds as something to worry about, or something to be frustrated about, or something to be regretful about. And that's the second part of the book, is helping people recognize don't do that. And the third part is stop dumping on others. One of the things that we don't realize is we have a large imprint in the world, in all the people that we touch, and we often don't recognize the things that we do, the things that we say, the body language we give, that ultimately leads to us dumping on other people at work, at home. And the key in the book is ultimately about this, is relationships at home and at work, how to make them extraordinarily better, more peaceful, and ultimately more rewarding.
So it starts with an awareness. We're going to get into that a little bit more. But first, since so many people around the world have taken your No Garbage Truck pledge, can you share it with us?
Yeah, the No Garbage Trucks pledge. Well, so we all know in human behavior, if you want to get something into your psyche, you want to get something into your spirit, if you want to change your habits, you've got to get it into yourself physically, mentally, spiritually. And so what I have people do in the book, The Law of the Garbage Truck, and when I do live events, and Mace, you've been awesome. I've seen you in the front row participating fully in this. And that's where I have people take a 10-line pledge after they understand the law of the garbage truck, where they really have declared already that they're not going to accept garbage, or to elaborate, emotional garbage. Don't accept emotional garbage. So don't accept garbage, don't create garbage, don't dump garbage. So ultimately we have people take this 10-line pledge, which is in 48 languages around the world, been taken by people from more than 100 countries, and it's essentially based on a story that I've told over the years of an experience I had in New York City. And that pledge is simply this: I do not accept garbage in my life. And remember, it's emotional garbage. I do not accept garbage in my life. When I see garbage trucks, and that ultimately are people who are acting like garbage trucks, when I see garbage trucks, I do not take them personally. I just smile. So it's externally, internally. I just smile. I wave. I wish them well, always wishing people well. We're not doing this with vengeance and taunting them. So I wave, I wish them well, and I move on. I get right back to what's important to me, and that's critical. And so that's the first part of Law of the Garbage Truck. And then the second part is, and I do not spread garbage to others. I am not a garbage truck, and that's the key. I do not spread garbage to others. I'm absolutely committed not to accepting the garbage, but not dumping the garbage. I am not a garbage truck. And that's the trigger that we ask people to use as a filter as they move around the world and think, I'm not a garbage truck because I do not accept garbage in my life. And that's the pledge.
So, David, by the way, I'm curious, 48 languages, how many languages, and I'm not going to test you here, but how many languages can you recite the No Garbage Trucks pledge in?
Well, if you really incented me, I could probably work my way through Spanish, and that would be about it.
But that's English and Spanish. That leaves another 46 that you'll leave to people who speak those languages.
Yeah, it was great. Just the other day, I received an email from a leader in a company in the Czech Republic, and they wanted the translation for the pledge because they plan to have all of their employees take the pledge. And I wish that I could lead them in that Czech pledge, but that's one of those where I'd wish them well and watch them and clap very loudly.
That is so awesome to think that in Czechoslovakia, oceans away on other continents, people are taking the No Garbage Trucks pledge. That is so cool.
That's great.
In the book, you make a statement, don't process garbage trucks, just let them pass by. Explain how most people tend to process garbage, and more importantly, how do you just let it pass by? I mean, when someone's dumping on you, a lot of people want to slug them, want to lash back. Does this mean you just ignore people who are annoying you?
Let's take driving as an example, Mace.
Okay.
Here's a typical experience for someone, for us or someone we know. Someone cuts you off driving, and all of a sudden you feel personally offended. You're like, that guy just cut me off. We get into this conversation about whether we start, cussing, or we start, waving our hands, or we feel compelled to, slam on the horn. And if we have people in the car, then we start talking about it. We start saying, can you believe that guy? Look what he did. All drivers are bad, and get into that, it's getting worse all the time. I mean, it's how can you be safe these days? And so I say this because what happens is when you think of that bad driver, it's like a garbage truck. They did something beyond your control. There's nothing you can do that's safe. You're not going to track them down and pull them off to the side of the road and give them a lesson, pull out your manual on driving and give them a lesson on good driving or good etiquette. So you're not going to do that. So what happens is rather than focus on what's important, the person in your car, maybe you're on a date with your wife or your kids are in the back seat, or you're going to a business meeting and you want to be focused. Instead, what you're doing is you get all focused and fired up about this driver who just passed you by. So you're all fired up about that. It's something you can't control. And the mindset in the book is not ignoring a garbage truck or not just, ignoring someone who's acting badly, but rather if it's beyond your control and it's just a preference, you prefer they acted a little differently or they prefer they drove differently, but you can't control that ultimately it's getting yourself into what I call a real-time forgiveness mindset. Someone makes an inconsequential mistake, there's nothing you can do about it. Move to the position of forgiving them, and then remember that we all make our mistakes. We make mistakes driving, we make mistakes in our relationships, we say things we don't mean, and we want people to not judge us harshly. We want them to exhibit real-time forgiveness with us. So that's what I ask people to do in the book, is to really think where there are times where you can just engage in real-time forgiveness because it's not important, it's nothing you can control, you move on.
One thing my wife, CJ, says to me often when I have one of those incidents, if I'm driving and someone cuts me off and I get all fired up, she will say, Mace, just let it go. It's not important. Let it go. Now, here's the thing, David, about let it go. Here's the thing. There are things that we all want to let go of, but sometimes it's difficult. So I really like your idea of absorbing this negativity to start with. But once you already have, and this might be a little bit of a tangent from what we're talking about, but do you have any tricks or hints for people to let it go?
Yeah, there are a number of things you can do, but there are 5 in principle that I suggest to people when it comes to if they're past the point of letting it pass by and they've absorbed the impact of the garbage truck and they're in that mode of frustration, or going back to a memory that's been triggered and they're in that mode of dealing with that memory or that future worry. Then what I say is basically 5 things. First thing is ask yourself, is it important? Is this something that I need to deal with? Is this something that's not been addressed? And if the answer is yes, then address it, deal with it, get on it. Don't let it sit there and fester. And then if the answer is you haven't addressed it, then, do your best to resolve it. Do anything that you can to resolve that issue. Now, the 4th step after you try your best to resolve it is ultimately to accept that you've done what you can. There are certain circumstances that you just can't change someone's opinion or you can't redo a situation of the past, is that you get to a place of acceptance. It is what it is. There's nothing I can do further about it. Let's move on and focus on what's important. And then 5, what I say to people is, when a memory appears, a bad memory appears, or a worry comes in, treat it like a garbage truck of the mind and let it pass by. So the idea is that it's not like you get over, this is what people say, you get over it and then you never have to deal with it again in your life. The reality is that difficult times in our lives will pop up from time to time, even if they're resolved. So rather than try to repress the memory, push it out, deny it, the idea is to see it. To see it in your mind and say, I see it, I acknowledge it, but I've dealt with it, and I'm just going to smile. And literally, you just smile at your own memory. I smile, I wave, I wish it well, and I move on. And the peace immediately starts to roll in once you've identified it as a garbage truck that you can just let pass by.
David, I'm just going to think of you waving as the garbage passes you by, and hopefully that will help me to do the same when it happens to me. And of course, it happens all the time. Taking control of life's big three is the goal of I'm Giving Notice and the I'm Giving Notice podcast. Life's three, of course, means your job, your relationships, and your health. But when it comes to relationships, there are those relationships we can't terminate. A lot of times if there's toxic people around you, such as a coworker or a friend, you could fire that friend, you could avoid that coworker the best you can. But with someone like family members, you just can't get rid of them. And in the book, you talk about the garbage truck communication rule that says catching people at their best. Can you explain what this means and how it can help to get along with the people in your life that you just can't walk away from?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is really key. And this is really the fourth step in the book that I outline. The first being don't accept garbage or don't let others dump on you. Don't create your own garbage and don't dump on others. And then the fourth one there is help others stop dumping. So the idea then is if there's someone in your life, a family member, well, I'll give you an example. One of my best friends years and years ago, started dating somebody who was delightful, really, super attractive. I mean, she was a great catch. There's no doubt about it. And he's a great guy, so good catch for her. But what was happening is that she was just the way she was, and it could have been nerves or anxiety, I don't know, but what she was doing was driving away all her friends. What she would do is she would ride them with criticisms and unwanted advice and would tease a lot and so forth. And I'm, naturally pretty good about dealing with that, but there was a time where she started riding me. We were on a trip together as a couples, and she started riding me for no apparent reason. It was just one of those things. And I said, I feel just what these other friends had started feeling and had started resolving to do, which is they were starting to distance themselves from our friend and his girlfriend. Now, in this case, if you go with the idea of the garbage truck communication rule, that most people, even if they're acting like garbage trucks, they are not garbage trucks all the time. They do good things. They say good things. They mean well. And the key is if you want to relate to them and you want to connect to them, you've got to do it when their underbelly is exposed, when they are at their best, when they're doing something that you can acknowledge right there and then for being kind or sweet or something that you appreciate. Because if you go head-to-head with a garbage truck when they're in that hot moment of being fired up, you can't. We know, Mason and I, you and I have been in business a long time. You just can't reason with people when they're emotionally fired up. So the idea is to, especially if they are somebody with long-term negative habits. So take this friend of mine and his girlfriend. It was maybe an hour after that incident of just riding and criticizing and just teasing to the point where it wasn't funny. It wasn't fun. It was just just all negative. We were at a lunch table, and I happened to be sitting across from her, and she said something so nice and so sweet. And I just reached across, and I'm not suggesting physical contact with people that but I did at that moment. I reached across the table, grabbed her hands, and I looked her in the eyes, and I said, I just want to tell you how sweet you are, and this is the type of relationship that I've been hoping my best friend would have, and the way you're acting with me now is so appreciated because I feel your warmth, I feel your caring, and I appreciate it even more so than with teasing at times and criticizing that I felt that you have engaged in a bit recently. And what I really appreciate is this desire to have me in your life with my friend and your desire to be in communication with me. And when I looked at her as I was saying this, and I'm not saying it exactly how it was, of course, at the time, but when I was saying it, I could see her tears welling up in her eyes because she recognized that I actually cared. And that's the point. It's not, don't have the perfect language. So I don't want anyone on the podcast to say, I wouldn't have said it that way or this way. Say it the way you say it, but once you really say it from your heart that you want to connect with somebody and you're acknowledging them at their best, that's when they really see your sincerity and have a real prime example of behavior that they can engage in more often and that they'll know that you'll appreciate. And I just say keep coming back to those moments where they're at their best to give them the encouragement, the appreciation that they're important in your life.
When you catch them at their best, to use your words.
Yeah.
Let them know that you see it and that you appreciate it. You did something else that was very cool. You called her on her negative behavior after you commended her for her sweetness and the good that you found in her. How you preferred that over the other behaviors that you've seen. And that certainly cushioned any blow that she might have perceived by you pointing out the negative behavior.
Yeah, you pointed out something there, Mace, that's just really important to underline, and that is none of us want people to criticize us. We don't want to wake up in the morning and say, boy, I hope my kids come down the hall and start criticizing my role as a father, or my wife says I'm not doing what I should be doing, or my business partners or customers. So none of us want that. But if we're going to get criticism, what's important is that we feel that we've been acknowledged, that we are acknowledged, that we have been acknowledged, because it creates a safe zone for people to give us feedback. When we don't have that safe zone where we feel that we're always under attack, it's really hard to take someone's feedback if it's just more of the same. But to your point, which is so important, and again to underline that we want to make sure that people in our lives are acknowledged for what they do well and what's important, what they do that makes a difference, and then all the feedback that we have in life will be more appreciated and more welcome than if we just get on the criticism bandwagon and feel it our job to point out everything that they do wrong.
Wow, David, such great advice. One of the chapters in The Law of the Garbage Truck is entitled, Venting Can Help, but Dumping Will Hurt. What's the difference?
Yeah, this is key. Actually, when Sterling Publishing put out this book, The Law of the Garbage Truck, and they're owned by Barnes & Noble, and it's interesting that you point out this question because the CEO of Sterling Publishing at the time asked me that question. Point blank in a meeting, we were about to sign the deal, and all the top chief operating officer, all the VPs were all there, and he asked me that question, and this was my answer, and this is what's in the book. Venting is different than dumping in this way. Venting is permission-based. When you say to someone, hey, can I vent for a minute? The first thing we're doing is we're asking permission because we're opening it up for the possibility that someone can say, right now, I'd love to be there for you, but I'm just so busy. I've got to run to this meeting, or a call's coming in right now, or I'm getting ready to jump on a podcast with Mace Haroff. It's permission-based.
Are you venting, David?
No, I'm actually very grateful. I'm on my knees, Mace. Because see, what's going to happen with this podcast, it's going to be one of the most successful podcasts, not this episode particularly, but your podcast, so that over time I'm going to have bragging rights to say I was the first guy interviewed. So I'm really actually in the appreciation mode. You're giving me a title that I'm going to carry for
and you're
years.
Sending a message out to the universe as well, which I love. Thank you for doing that.
Oh, absolutely. Amen. I'm going to just take 2 seconds just to say, for anyone listening, you already know Mace is the real deal. He's a sweet guy. He's a great guy, super successful in business, one of the best speakers I've ever seen. He's a great writer. I've endorsed his books. He's just a good guy, but he also tells it like it is, but in a kind way. And that's what, that's why he's a friend and someone that I really look up to.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet. Well, so back to venting. So it's permission based, but it's also time based. So when we say to someone, usually we say, can I vent for a moment? Or can I vent?
Most people don't ask though.
Yeah, well, that's the awesome part about the book is that once you get this distinction, you're going to revolutionize your relationships just with this distinction alone, because the intention of venting is being thoughtful. You have something you share, and oftentimes it can even come off as a compliment that you care enough about that other person that you want to vent, you want to share, and you ask for that permission, and you do it. Dumping, on the other hand, man, it's all about you. It's about how you're feeling, how the world just did something to you, how you're all frustrated or you're all upset. And so you're not worrying about the impact you're having on someone else, whether you're driving and you're frustrated and you're not letting people in, or you're at work and you're being rude, or at home and you're just, ranting about this or that or your day. You don't care about, because you feel absolutely deserving of saying what you have to say, doing what you have to do without concern of the impact. So the big thing is to say, and ask that question, as you said, hey, can I vent for a moment? Man, you will change your life immediately with your spouse, with your boss, your coworkers, just really anyone in your life.
It seems just by thinking about asking the question, you're able to discern whether or not you want to vent or whether you're just complaining about something. And it seems to me, on a personal level, that if I asked that question before I started complaining about something, I'd probably let it go from the standpoint of understanding that nothing productive will come out of a complaint. But if there's something I want to vent about, where maybe sometimes we just need to vent, I acknowledge that. But if we can somehow engage someone in a conversation where there'll be a productive outcome, that makes it worthwhile. But if I ask the question, am I venting or am I dumping, and I realize I'm dumping, I'm probably not going to say anything. I won't ask for permission. I'll just let it go because I don't like to waste time on things that aren't productive. Is that a bad approach?
Oh, yeah, Mace, that's what I get like chills when people, recognize like you are the something so important is that when you recognize you're about to dump, you are preserving the mood of the positive mood of the relationship that you're about to connect with. So if you come home and you love your wife or you love your husband, whoever's listening here to the podcast, your spouse or your friends or the person that you're about to engage in a relation, a connection with, if you catch yourself about to dump, what you do is, again, you keep open the mood for curiosity, creativity, for love, for gratitude, all positive things. But when you get yourself when you just start dumping, you see people's face turns, they start backing up, their body language, they cross their arms, they start fidgeting, or they start engaging in negative stuff themselves because we've triggered it. So, man, if you can ask that question, am I about to dump here? Or, before venting, or even saying that to someone, say, I'm sorry, I'm dumping. I didn't mean to do that. I just would love just to talk to you for a minute if I could. If you have a second, I'd love for your thoughts. That will make all the difference in a relationship, at work, big time, and in a family, also big time.
You're putting, when you say, I would like your thoughts, you're putting the focus on them as opposed to yourself, which is what people do when they dump.
Yeah, right, exactly. They just get into a rant and they don't leave open the possibility that someone else has something very helpful that could potentially be helpful or insightful. And all of us love giving advice. So given the right time, given the right invitation, we're ready to help other people.
David, I have one more, the law of the garbage truck question.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that it can help people who are dealing with serious health challenges. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd say it from two perspectives. If you're a caregiver or you're a patient. And so let's talk about both. If you're a caregiver, I'll give you an example. Mace, you know about this. My dad has Alzheimer's. Thought it was early onset dementia. I guess it was. We'll say that was the right diagnosis. But it became full-blown Alzheimer's. And I'm the durable power of attorney. So I am talking to the Veterans Administration. I'm talking to long-term health care. I'm talking to day centers. I'm talking to nursing providers. I'm talking to doctors. And I need all of them to help me as much as possible, to efficiently give me information, to recognize the knowledge that I need, give me the forms, the referrals that I need, and all of that done. And what I find is that with all these individuals, if they have frustrating days and sometimes they don't act in the way that I would prefer, but what I do is I apply the law of the garbage truck, where if it's a negative behavior I can't control, I don't take it personally. I just let it pass by and I focus back on asking the questions I need to ask, or if there are opportunities there to be kind to them and check in with how their day's going, especially if I know them, I'll do that. So the idea is not to make a situation worse because I focus on a negative thing that I can't control, but rather really embrace the relationship for its importance and focus on what I can control, which is asking the questions and the follow-up questions and so forth. And what I find is that people want to help me. And even the people who sometimes act not so nice, they come around to helping me at least get the information that I need. So that's with caregivers. Now, on the patient side, wow, when we're suffering and we're dealing with something that's not good in our lives, physically or psychologically, whatever it might be, we need as much love and support as we can get. So I tell people in the book, I tell a story of someone I know who had breast cancer, and she went through operations in order to cure her situation, to cure her cancer. And she was so focused on making sure that she didn't dump on others, but rather that she brought out the best in other people. And so if she needed to express something that she was concerned about, she vented with others. She vented with her husband. She vented with her friends. But she didn't dump on them, because the last thing in the world we want to do is drive distance or drive holes in our relationship or create a wedge that gets bigger and bigger because people start feeling bad when they're around us. But man, if we can make people feel good about their contribution to our health, to our recovery, people really want to help out. People really want to make a difference. And so there's the application to making sure you follow the law of the garbage truck as a patient. Don't dump. Don't dump on other people, and be kind and accepting of the way. And that's the other point. Be kind and accepting of the way other people want to help you. Try not to judge them as to how they do it, because people give in various ways and they show their love in various ways. Accept it, because, again, you want all the positive energy you can get when you're suffering from any kind of mental, physical disability.
I am so glad I asked you that question, because often I speak about health from the perspective that we're responsible for our own health. Our actions, our behaviors is what drives our health. I never really stopped to think about how dependent we are upon others for good health as well. So that's, gosh, you just enlightened me in a huge way. Thank you so much. David, we're almost out of time, but one thing I want to talk about before we're done is on October 21st, you're releasing your new book. It is called The Three Promises. Are you able to tell me anything about it?
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning it, and I'm excited about it. It's really the other hand, if you've got two hands and you got the law of the garbage truck in one hand, which is all about the law of the garbage truck, is all about how you respond to other people and to your own negative thinking and negative views of memories and so forth. It's all about responding. The three promises around how to create what I call fulfillment every day. How is it that you can, and this goes, let's dovetail this last question about people having health challenges. Mace, you and I both know people that have passed away recently, or people that have been diagnosed with the disease,
sure,
or are suffering from something chronically. And so the idea that we should wait until we get the right job, until we get the right diagnosis, until we get the right spouse or the right friend to be happy or to be fulfilled is a terrible strategy for living life. Just on the facts that we may not get there. And this is not a motivational message, it's a factual message. We may not get to that point where all these things turn. So the three promises is about saying, look, be clear about your long-term goals. If you want a better relationship, if you want whether you want to get married to somebody who's awesome, or you want to have better friendships or a better job, that's great. The key is then, how do we create and craft a day where you feel fulfilled every day so that you're operating at your very best, so people want to work with you, so you feel good, and that at the end of the day you can make a big psychic check on your day and say, that's another fulfilling day moving in the world. So there are three promises. And the three promises are science-based promises. My background is, Mace, you were so kind to say in the beginning about my introduction about positive psychology. The three promises are based in the science of positive psychology, what we know about what makes people happy and successful. And the first promise is this: find joy every day. You've got to find joy every day. And I outline in great detail strategies and tactics for creating joy in your day, no matter your circumstances. Second promise is do what you love, and that's what this podcast is all about, and many other things. But one of them is getting to a point where you are in the job that you want to be in, or that you're remaking the job that you have, so it's really positive and fulfilling. So that's the second promise, do what you love. And the third is make a difference. We know from the research, Stephen Post's research, Adam Grant's research, these two researchers have demonstrated that when we give to others, when we volunteer, when we in small ways and big ways to other people, we are more fulfilled, we're happier, and it creates ultimately, and this is where I'll just wrap up, is to say that the three promises becomes part of a cycle where when we find joy, we're more likely to be creative and get into doing what we love. And when we're feeling more joyful and we're feeling like we're more abundant in doing what we love, we're more likely to make a difference. And when we're making a difference, that comes back in the form of feeling joy, and it just goes on in a virtuous circle that I call the promise cycle of energy. So ultimately, at the end of the day, what I really want people to be able to do is craft at the beginning of their day and throughout their day a fulfilling day, reviewing or kind of looking at their life in a new filter and looking for opportunities to fulfill these 3 promises. And then when you run into a negative person or a negative event that you can't control, you then use the law of the garbage truck to get yourself staying centered and inside the 3 promises.
Wow, David, I can't wait for the book to come out. Be clear about your long-term goals. I tell you one thing I'm very clear about. That's what an amazing guest you've been, and I am so grateful that you came on the show and shared what you shared. And I'm also thrilled that I learned a lot. That's really one of the reasons I'm doing this. Selfishly, I get to learn a lot from people like you. So thank you so much for doing that. For anyone who would like information about David's current book, The Law of the Garbage Truck, and the 3 promises, his upcoming book, there will be links on the show notes page. Just go to www.imgivingnotice.com, and it will all be listed there, along with other links about how you can get in touch with David. David, I'm going to ask you right now, if someone would like to get in touch with David Pollay, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, best way to get in touch with me, and then I got to say one great thing about you, Mace. So I'll tell you, is to go to the URL, David Pollay, spelled POLLAY.com, davidpollay.com, and we'll get you centered in all the different places you can connect with us and connect with me. But I've got to tell you, Mace, I've got bragging rights now. I want to make sure that this, that the world knows I have been honored by being your first guest. I'm thrilled that you're doing this. You're the right guy for this. I listen to podcasts all the time. I'm looking forward to listening to yours as we go forward. Thanks, buddy, for having me on the show.
Thank you, David. And maybe we can do another interview once The 3 Promises by Sterling Publishing is released on October 21st.
I'd love to do it.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, David Pollay. David, thanks so much for being a guest on the show.
Thanks again.
Okay, everybody, and we'll be talking to you again soon. In the meantime, don't forget, I'm giving notice, taking control of life's big 3. This is Mace Haroff. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.
This has been the I'm Giving Notice podcast with Mace Haroff. For show notes and more information about how you can take control of life's big 3, please visit www.imgivingnotice.com.